So, hi guys, I'm Thaon Simms, and this is the Limitless Podcast. Joining me is your co host, Matthew Preston. Hail up the people in Matthew.
Hey guys, what's up?
Nice. And today we have a very special guest. Feel like you guys would like to hear from him. Introduce yourself, Mr. Ryan Strachan.
Afternoon, I'm Ryan Strachan, and it's great to be here with you today. I have nothing else to say by way of introduction.
All right.
Oh, this is brought to you by Hennessy VSOP, by the way.
Yeah, man. Preston, now would be a good time to pop the 12 here, honestly. Preston actually got me a bottle.
Not getting too deep in specifics. I opened a bottle my birthday and I just turned 40. So I used to drink it all the time. But like I used to mix it as an amateur then, and then I open it and obviously I drink it on the rocks now. So that particular night, me and my brethren had some, well, two friends had some, and then I had some yesterday. But the thing is, I had some VS, but I mixed the VS, or we mixed the VS, so it's not me alone drinking. Today, he had VSOP there. So, despite the fact I went to the gym a little early, I said, hey, let's have it on the rocks. I mean, it's a chaser drunk, the liquor is fine. Then I said, oh, I have to meet up with these guys at 5:30 and here we are. So, I don't know that comes.
A funny story. I tried Hennessy for the first time. When was it? It was on your birthday, Theon. So Theon's birthday was like a month
Yeah.
or a few weeks ago, and Gordon Swaby came and he bought him a bottle of Hennessy
Hmm.
for like, or bought us like the crew a bottle of Hennessy, and it was actually pretty good.
Which one? Is it
Yeah.
the big bottle or like the
Ah,
narrow stem one? Like, is it, there's two, there's
No, the big bottle.
multiple.
The big bottle.
That's a, I mean, all Hennessy is nice. I mean, the VSOP is the real
mm-hmm.
one that you don't mix. You really
Hmm.
shouldn't. But
Yeah, you really shouldn't. It's sacrilegious, actually.
I actually only learned that recently
Mm.
because
Mm,
I get into a lot of stuff other than finance. But I said I'm only, for the most part, chasing my dreams this year. I'm not chasing like a
Mm.
bag of liquor. So I
yeah,
started
yeah.
on my own on the rocks and 15 and then I said, well, I really haven't tried VSOP on the rocks. I always knew the regular Hennessy is not a liquor to drink on the rocks. Was never mistaken in that respect.
Facts.
And then I had it and it's like, yo, this actually tastes a lot better than rum, but it's a different kind of vibe. I couldn't drink a
Mm-hmm.
cognac every day, so I
Yeah,
mean, not that I drink every
Yeah.
day, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Have you ever had the pure white?
Yes,
Yeah, I
pretty
like the
cool.
pure white as well. Yeah, man.
I have an XO here, but I haven't had reason to open it. I actually collect expensive liquor on the side, but that's another story.
I think I saw you post one of the special Appleton bottles. Was it the ruby one?
Yeah, I have the Ruby, I have the 23, the 25, I think the 30. I have
Mm.
Joy. What's that one? I didn't even look at them that much, and none of them been open. A Joy is open actually. I opened the Joy
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
2 years ago. But 23, 25, the Ruby obviously is not open. Um, but they have a reason to open it. So
Yeah. So hi guys, this is the Liquor Podcast.
Love that.
that's how it's there.
So, what other hobbies do you have, Ryan?
Me, I like a ton. Like I'm very much into obviously like anything physical. So
Mm-hmm.
I used to play a lot of sports growing up. Soccer, football. I guess
Mm-hmm.
it's a Jamaican podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Football as a very serious cricketer up until I turned like 28.
Mm-hmm.
So football, cricket.
Nice.
So obviously by virtue of that, I watch both sports heavily.
Mm-hmm.
Watch American football a lot.
Who's your football team? You watch EPL?
Bro, if you don't know that from Twitter.
Man United. I've been to Old
Mm.
Trafford, which is really old Trafford. I've been following Man United for 21
Uh-huh.
years. Actually, because playing cricket so much, I never really got into football. So I missed the treble. I became a fan after the treble.
Mm-hmm.
So when I don't know, I mean, I know you guys may be a little younger, but like when David Beckham scored that free kick against
Oh,
Greece,
yeah.
to
Mm-hmm.
send it to the World Cup, that would have been like 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
01 going to 02. I just landed in England for college. I'm at the sports bar. But from Jamaica, you don't really think football is that serious, And I land there, and you land and you start settling, and the man them say, "Yo, them I go watch some ball, come to the pub and whatever, whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when Beckham scored that, I mean, it was absolute euphoria. In fact, I mean, I'm 40. That was like I would have been at the time 19.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I've been a David Beckham fan since, and I'm not starstruck at all. But just being there, seeing that, I remember. I mean, there's so much I can't even get to. Maybe after it's done recording, I can get into it. But just being in England at the time and all that was going on was
Mm-hmm.
just. It was a lot more absorbing. It was a lot more euphoric than we would actually. I don't think we take sports as seriously in the Caribbean as like those guys in England do or North America do. And just being there in the midst of it and starting to follow like football or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it was a
I mean,
big
yeah,
thing for me.
definitely.
So,
That whole sector is underfunded,
yeah,
like
massive.
significantly. Like,
I actually
and
think that
just the articles that we've been
yeah,
seeing come out, even for the girls' team as well. Like, it's significantly underfunded. Like issues with funding to transport the team,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just, yeah, from a high level, it's
no,
needs a
it's
lot of
wild
work.
actually. It's
Yeah.
wild because I don't think well I know we don't really appreciate sports locally, and I know it's an investment podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
but it ties up because I can tell you. So I we went to watch the Reggae Girls in France, Paris. So let's just go outside of Paris. This would have been 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and just going through that process, I was just like, yo, to hear that these ladies couldn't get funding to get the bags cleared or whatever. It's crazy. And it extends to champs, it extends to so many things. Okay, fine. So we see football, sorry, schoolboy football on TV, And you say, boy, it's getting good coverage. But me and my friend actually 15 years ago wanted to go into the schoolboy sports. Well, no, the high school sports business. Another story, but the moral of the story is that we have barely scratched the surface in terms of the potential revenue generating capacity
Mm-hmm.
and investment potential of sports in Jamaica from the
Mm-hmm.
standpoint of football clubs being franchised and bought
Wasn't there a
and
point they were
being
talking about some of them being listed? I think in Jamaica,
huh?
I think there was a point where they, I think it was maybe an article I read maybe a year or a few months ago. They were talking about listing some football clubs on the JSC.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I
that
definitely
that's
saw
great.
that.
That's a step in the right direction. But the truth is, the revenue generating capacity, even if they were to have listed now,
Mm-hmm.
would not have been maximized
Mm-hmm.
because we still don't have merchandising being where it should be. We still
True.
don't have gate receipts being a thing. And the demand is there. I just think it requires, and bear in mind, don't get me wrong, the current leadership, Chris Williams and their team, are carrying us in the right direction. I'm just saying that you need to understand that one football club in a community
Mm-hmm.
has a potential to uplift the whole community.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So, I mean, you go in any inner city, like, I'm in the streets. I mean, I'm sure you guys are as well, but you go in any garrison or ghetto or whatever, like, you have the best hairdressers, the best salons in terms of like girls
Mm-hmm.
with nails and whatever. And the
Best
fact of
barbers, yes,
best
definitely.
barbers, you understand me? I say best parties, everybody knows that, right? So the revenue generation capacity is there. When I went to Old Trafford to watch Man United, I'm not going to lie, like, I actually thought the whole surrounding area was going to be this metropolis. I wasn't expecting to see Old England and then I walk up and I see $1 billion facility that will have like Cristiano Ronaldo, etc., passing through. You just never would have thought it. I mean, the whole town shuts down at 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock,
Mm.
actually, or 8 o'clock.
Mm.
And then the next day, the stadium is full. The match I went to watch was Man United Chelsea. And this was 5 years ago. I didn't want to get
Mm.
into what I paid for the ticket, but the point I'm making is,
Facts, because I'm a Chelsea fan. Let's not get into that.
I mean, we won that day actually. Man United won that day. But the thing is, like, I
Mm.
mean, at the time, I don't know who the manager was. Must have been Conte, I think it was. And the point is, you have these millionaire footballers coming to this stadium to play. The hotel, which is right across the road, that was recently built. You're paying like £700 a night, I think it was. I don't remember how much you paid. It was a lot of money, or 700 US, whatever it was. I don't remember. A funny story. Like, actually saw Phil Neville in the. I'm walking out, he's walking in, and guys are asking for selfies. But I'm not
Oh.
starstruck, so I was like, yeah, I feel what's up. But I wasn't gonna be like, yo, beg your picture. I'm not doing that. If I saw Beckham, I would do that. But that's probably the only
Yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not that guy. The point though
Mm-hmm.
is, in the midst of this, in the doldrums of the surrounding environment, you had this multi-billion-dollar facility, and it says that could be Harborview, that could be Anet Gardens.
Mm.
Anet Gardens
Mm.
is 10 minutes from New Kingston, ten
Yes, that's
minutes
very
from
true, you know.
downtown
Yeah.
Kingston. So there's nothing that stops that being realized in Jamaica. So in other words, the gap is obviously not the I mean the not the asset itself. Is perhaps a perception.
Mm.
Mm.
Because if people knew that the World Cup, let's just say for argument's sake, a World Cup training base was at Anet Gardens for 1 year. Or let's say we knew that there would be a reasonable base of revenue generating activities happening in that nucleus at the time. You would have shops spring up, all these the pockets of activity springing up. Fine, we know the social issues. We're not going to go down that road. But the reality is, it's more of a perception and comfort thing more than the reality itself, because really there's nothing that should stop these communities from being revenue generators rather than revenue subtractors that they are now. You see what I'm saying with it? And I believe sports is a big part to play, because I'm telling you, when you go to Manchester in England, it ain't no big show. There's no bag of rich people living around there. And it says to me as an investor, well, if we look at Jamaica, every community that hosts sports in Jamaica, you know, the baller play uptown. There's no uptown stadium. The closest one is from the Barbican or Real Mona Field. That's it. Everything is inner city and country, and everything is cheaper there. So he says that's a glaring opportunity. But the quality or the capacity to generate a return on investment is what may be called into question as of right now. Doesn't mean it's going to be so in 5 years. So you may have stories of man who buy land in wherever. Yeah, the man for the use squatters or whatever. And I'm saying, well, pay $1 million for this, you know. And then him have some foreigner try buy it from him for $1 million US. You just never know. I mean, you can't buy land around Old Trafford, no, but they call it Old Trafford for a reason. It's old. Yeah, but anyway. So I said that to say that I think there's a lot of opportunity in Jamaica in sports and culture.
What got you into investing, Ryan?
Great question.
Mm.
So my mother, it's actually very difficult to answer. So I remember there's a few
Mm.
sources of inspiration I can recall. So I remember one time my mother took me and my brother around the backyard to plant mangoes, mango seed or whatever. I've
Mm.
never liked mangoes from life, but I have like three
Mm.
mangoes a year, whatever. Anyway, so and then I think she may have said, like in passing, that in 3 years this tree will actually bear a lot more than the one seed you planted in the ground. And it was funny because that actually became a
Mm.
hell of a mango tree, you know. And it also taught me, and I mean I said this elsewhere, the other aspects that come with it, where people will like jump a fence and try to thief man go off a tree. You know, there's an earlier lesson in bad mind and just life. But anyway, the point is that was one element of it. But what I when I started to read about
Mhm.
like businessmen and all of that on Forbes magazine, when you actually had the physical magazines printed, I realized that you're not gonna get wealthy working 9 to 5 in somebody's environment unless you're like creating value. But you could do that and have a stake in that business that grows and exceeds the capital you would have invested at the outset. And for me, that was kind of like one of the things that drove it. So like the stock market being the ability to invest in
Mhm.
actual businesses was a big thing. And then I crossed paths with a particularly wealthy investor who his dividend checks essentially fueled his lifestyle and paid his staff and all of that. And then I was like, okay, so it was stages. It was never so the mindset I had at the outset when I was like 18, trying to like get on and be somebody, because this is like this work, the studying life is just not for
Mhm.
me, which is never has been. My mindset then versus my mindset at 23 when I first bought my first stock was different than my mindset at 32 when I crossed paths with this again with this rich guy,
Mhm.
very wealthy guy, I should say, sorry, who had built a life of dividend investments and had invested
Remember what your first stock was?
red stripe. Funny
They
enough.
should just sponsor us, honestly.
You know what I mean? Like
Link up.
all little companies link up.
Uh,
Red Stripe, Sagicor, and what was the other one? Red Stripe, Sagicor.
Scotia, NCB.
I don't remember the last. There's three.
Uh-uh.
No, 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 no. Come on, no. Red Stripe, Sagicor, and
Uh,
I don't remember the other one. At that time, it was like oh
mm,
05. There weren't that many listed companies, but it wasn't Lascelles, it wasn't
mhm,
Quartz. I don't think it was Kingston Walls. Could have even been Kingston Walls.
mhm,
I don't even think I don't remember the third one, but I know Red Stripe and
mm,
Sagicor for sure were two.
mm,
Absolute, no doubt about
mm,
it. But that's what got me into it. And the truth is, it was a thing of early days, and I try to tell people all the time is listen, it's the habit. Early days, I never had, I came up a long way. I never had the smoothest corporate journey or whatever. And so I never had the benefit of stability and blah, 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 whatever. Like, nobody really cares. At the end of the day, it was just a thing of, I was exposed to this and I'm going to I was convinced to invest in this, and I'm not gonna lie, like I remember one of the stocks doubled, and I was like, all right, cool, that's nice, like I would have never
mhm,
imagined that happening. But then you sell to pay a bill here, a bill there, but I'm in the mindset and in the habit
Hmm.
of deploying funds, the habit of doing without, and then. That continued for 2 years, and career got a little rocky, and I had to pull the money. I was doing some different things, trying to get on. And then I started in this business as an investor in 2010, which would have been 5 years after I first started investing. And at the time, at 22, 5 years is a lot longer then than 5 years is now. And as such, by the time I had gone to Maybury to start, I was buying Lasco manufacturing, and we make a little money out of that. Not a life changing money. It felt that way at the time, not a life changing money. But I was in the habit of taking money out an account, putting it into something,
mhm,
and seeing it
Hmm.
grow over a period of time. And actually remember feeling regret that I never had more money
mhm,
to place then. So that what I mean. Phase phase two of my life as an investor, and then phase three would have been 2015. I mean, what, 32 then? And, again, buying NCB at like 30, Supreme going just like two, Current at two, Tanjam at 40 and selling at 100 and all that, and that was like, yo, this is free money, and then being like, Jono, I wish I had the money now and the opportunities then. But you know what? A very
Mhm.
successful guy who I know well, said to me recently, convenience and opportunity never usually go hand in hand. So you have to do what you can
Mhm.
when you can. That's the reality. And but that again opened my eyes to
Mhm.
what was possible. And here we are. So I have positions now that I'm
Mhm.
very comfortable holding, but if any of them blows up, like, I'm just like
Mhm.
super successful. So, and the truth is, like, once you get past a point, you're in it for the love of it. Like, you think about it, like, how many houses does one need? How many cars you need? Like, you get your dividend checks every quarter and you do what you have to do, but we just want to be able to advance past
Yeah,
the
that's
first level
facts.
and just
That's
live
really and
life.
truly the aim, to be honest. Just
Yeah,
to be able to live
ab-
life.
absolutely.
Mm. So
Mhm.
Absolutely.
what's like your style of investing then? Because I know you're speaking now about dividends. So is it that
Right.
you're really attracted to um let's say high dividend yield companies, or is it that you like how what's your style?
Well, my style is I try to buy into anything undervalued. So I'm not a big dividend investor. However, it matters. So here's a story. Here's a good example, right? So many times the narrative is they look at the dividend yield based on when a dividend is declared. So somebody may say, oh, well, the stock is trading at $3.50. They declared a dividend of 35 cents. So you're making
Mhm.
10% on it, right? But I was buying the stock when the stock was 35 cents.
Yeah.
So I'm actually getting
Facts.
100%.
Yeah.
Somebody may look on and say, well, they're saying, yeah, you're making 10%. Whatever the case, let's say you're making 5%. The stock is $7, they're paying 35 cents dividend. It's not a bag of money. But I'm like, yeah, but
You
I was
know?
buying the stock at 10 cents. You understand? So I'm trying to buy the stock as cheap as possible relative to what I assume the
Mhm.
inherent value is. So if you want to ask my perspective, generally speaking, I'm a value investor, but I love growth. I'm in this to make money. I'm not in this to see my stock stay stagnant for 5 years. I mean, if it happens, it happens. But it doesn't mean that I expected it to happen. It just means that I'm comfortable with that should
Mhm.
it be the case. Eh? A lot of times people try to make it look like, oh, guys who are comfortable holding for the long term are just comfortable because the stock underperformed. Not really, but we're just not going to buy stuff we wouldn't want to hold for a long time because we have lives. Like, we can't
Mhm.
just watch the market every day.
A lot of people do think that to jumping into investing and so on, you have to be watching the markets every day. You have to know the
Mhm.
charts, this, that, that. In
Yeah.
reality, you don't. Like I was telling
Correct.
even my dad recently, I was just like, because he knows I love investing and so on, and he often parallels his investing style with mine, and I'm just like, yo, my goals are completely different, pops. Like
Mhm.
if you're cool with at DCFing, which is not DCFing, sorry, I mean
The rum, the rum.
at the rum, bro. I swear.
DCA,
Somebody has to
DCA.
DCAing, right? Yeah, if you're comfortable DCAing, like dollar cost averaging, you just buy a stock like end of month, maybe 10 grand in a stock. That's fine. That's you. that's just not my style, right? And you have other things to think about. You have like retirement and this and that and your own personal goals. So he has to understand that I'm investing like pretty aggressively because my goals are, very ambitious goals. So yeah, to be honest, I mean, people tailor their investing style to you know their goals and what they like, what financial priorities they have in life, and those kind of stuff. Like it's very personal, very very personal. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And you know what I say as well, like it's like this for me. So people say, "Yo, why invest?" And I say, I mean, my as you rightly said, my goals, your goals are personal. I've said it publicly. I'm not investing to make money to buy a house. I work, I do well enough, and it grows every year or whatever. I buy a house if whatever, whenever I choose to alter what I make,
Mm-hmm.
or a two, or whatever the case is, right?
Wait, you don't own a house right now?
It depends how you classify that, but in terms of, I was buying one the
Mm-hmm.
other day and it fell through. So no, I've chosen not to buy it because it's just not a good use of my capital.
Ryan, you actually made a tweet that I love. Maybe it was a few months ago. You were saying something that was very true that I feel like a
Yeah,
lot of Jamaicans don't really understand. I think with us as Jamaicans, a big thing that a lot of people have, but they love they talk about real estate, right? A lot of people say, yo, that you should get into real estate.
right,
That's how you build wealth and stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of people don't really understand that if you're comparing, for example, asset classes and you're comparing real estate to equities, a
right,
lot of times equities is a or their equities are a lot better, especially when you're just getting started. And I can't remember the exact tweet you had made, but basically you were saying that like, or if I remember correctly, you were saying that like a lot of young people, or maybe just a lot of people, get into real estate maybe too early or something like that, and then they have
right.
it ties up a lot of their cash, like when they shouldn't actually be getting into real estate at that time. It's not that they should never get into real estate, but a lot of times people are better off getting
Right.
into equities, getting into stocks, using that to then possibly get into real estate at some point.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, like, I really try to make my
Mm-hmm.
deliberations not about me. So it's not that I'm guarded with my positioning, but the longer I'm in this, the more I have to realize like people
Mm-hmm.
listen to what I say. So my thing is listen. And as you start to get older, your circumstances can be different. So, and it's very difficult to tie your situation to others. And here's what I mean by that. And I'll come back to the original
Mm-hmm.
question because I have no issue answering it. Somebody who is 32, who's been working for 9 years, probably has a master's or whatever, is in a, climbing a corporate ladder. They may have a family home, they're an only child, and their parents are getting older, and they know they are taking
Mm-hmm.
control of this asset to live in. Real estate may mean a lot more to them because they have
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with it? Than somebody else who may be in that same situation, but is
Mm-hmm.
six of them. So that house have a split six
Mm-hmm.
ways. Maybe the parents have six houses. God knows, maybe the parents have no debt. So inheritance is another factor in their equation that the average person wouldn't know from looking unless they're going to disclose their business. My thing is, I'm speaking from a default position, somebody who is not inheriting anything, so to speak, and is trying to build themselves. I'm saying, listen, and then whether their career path will allow them to have outsized earnings or not, or if it's something they're pursuing. I am saying there is no harm in liquidity because regardless of where you find yourself in life, there are people who bought homes 7 years ago, servicing a mortgage normally, probably bought their home
Mm-hmm.
at 25 or 26. Find them have three kids since the house is kind of small and need to buy a bigger one. Housing market run up on them and them realtors say, yo, you need a bigger house. And say, well, it's $1 million for the house, so who else everybody? Them not have the money there. So the husband and
Mm-hmm.
wife will work overtime, stress themselves to buy the house.
Mm,
and then interest rates go up. Then buy the house last year and happy about it and show it off on Instagram and everything. And interest rates gone up,
mm,
housing price come down,
mhm.
Channel.
right?
But that mortgage.
But you pay more mortgage
Mm-hmm.
on a cheaper
Yeah.
house.
Hmm.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
And the expenses that can come with real estate sometimes, if like a hurricane or something.
Absolutely. You know, so much rain or fall makes it the house start
Mm-hmm.
leak last couple months. Million bucks that no, you have to say, Jaja, where am I going to find the extra
Yeah.
million from? Savings get licked. Credit card ton up fine,
Mm-hmm.
but credit card rates going up. You see, it's a fast track towards bankruptcy unless okay, mommy and daddy come
Yeah.
bail you out. Suppose there's no mommy and daddy. Which is why I'm very guarded in making these blanket statements
Hmm.
because it's so nuanced. I said for me, my whole approach is just for Ryan now. I am not in a stable earning environment. Fine, I do well, okay, whatever. It doesn't mean that's is what it is. But I am not looking at the kind of house I was
Hmm.
looking at 5 years ago. But that's for me. I understand my circumstances unique. But the reality is I am not impaired by interest rates
Hmm.
going up because I'm liquid. And life can
And
change
stocks
tomorrow.
are pretty liquid.
But the reality is absolutely, a lot of people built a life based on a low interest rate environment that
Mm-hmm.
was never going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with it? And that's why I've always said from day one, we need to be very careful because realtors want to sell houses. There's nothing wrong with that. But God bless you trying to sell a house. No, the houses I was looking at to buy 2 years ago is not the house I'm looking at to buy. No, because okay, fine, my earnings would have changed, but the reality is that I
Hmm.
took the time to wait. But it takes a certain temperament. I have to look past the 1,200 square foot apartments or the 900 square foot apartments for $30 million or whatever they cost. Because a man say, yo, me have to hold something, but yeah, me hold something, but I don't have a lawn. So I talk to guys, real estate is not my expertise, right? So I have virgins who are like heavy in it, and they're like, so one of them said to me, yo, anything you're buying has to come with grass. Okay, I'm guided by that.
Half of a front yard or something, you know?
Well, that's all right.
Mm.
You have to give me something, you can lie down and tan or whatever, friendly. and and I look at it and I say, all right, fine, I'm guided by that. But a lot of people just do it because society said them should do it, but them get licked. No. Or the other thing a lot of people don't talk about, like in your mid 30s, you can be in a dead end job
Hmm.
and you lose your job.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
your earnings fall. Because there are a lot of CEOs that lose their job today, they never work again. I can tell you many
Mm.
examples in my business because there's no more work for you. Or CFOs, there's CFOs of listed companies who've never worked since. I can tell you at
Wow.
least two. You can imagine that you lose your job
Mm.
at 50 something and you can't work again. I see them at the gym during my hours. I'm not going to bring up my hours now because security risk. But I see them, I see them all the time. But you said to yourself, was it worth it? Meanwhile, my stock could languish forever. One of them, because we
Mm-hmm.
own more than one. So I don't believe in
Mm-hmm.
over diversification. And then one day it go like Ryan Strachan go from 4 to 25.
Mm. Wow.
So if I had 5 million acquisition for 5 years and it go from 4 to 25, I make my 5 million is 30 million overnight. I'm like, yo, all right. I can go spend $1 million in Miami. I still have
Hmm.
29 left.
It's like a quick 500% there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not getting that in a house. No matter how much they want hype it, 'cause you have to go through too many stages. You have to go through lawyer, stamp office.
Yeah.
What do you have to go through?
There's
Two
all the
Mm-hmm.
lawyers. So
fees
God
too, and you
bless
have to
you.
sometimes get the land valued,
And
and
Right?
you need
you have to put
and the
the
down payment and
realtor.
Oh my God.
yeah.
There's a lot.
Stop everything to just go
Yeah.
to one thing. So like I don't even if I need to wait 4 years. Okay, fine, I wait 4 years. Who cares? Stock will pay me dividends, the cash come to my bank account.
Facts.
I don't even need the
You
stock.
just get the direct deposit.
You meant that a lot of people, for example, they are like most people when they buy a house, they're not just buying it in cash. They're using a loan or basically a mortgage.
No,
But
not to
then
find your
I
alone.
think that
Absolutely.
something
Yeah.
that a lot of people don't really understand is that it's almost like it's taboo to borrow money to buy stock, but it's fine to borrow money to buy real estate. You kn-
Sure. And you raise a wonderful point because you said to yourself, okay, I'm prepared to borrow for 35 years to buy this house. Why can't I borrow for
Mhm.
35 years to buy
True.
this stock?
And then the same point about the liquidity. If, for example, something happened to the house,
There you go.
say you bought a house in some area that you thought was going to be the next Jack's Hill, but then something happened and it didn't turn out to be very good. You now have that loan that, for example, suppose you even get laid off, you can't just, sell that house quickly to cover the loan or whatever you have. But for example, if you had in the case of a stock, you can then, for example, the stocks are a lot more liquid, so you can then sell that stock to then so that you no longer have to pay that loan, like you can pay off the rest of the loan. So,
Absolutely. But you see, it goes
yeah.
Hmm.
against popular
Uh-huh.
culture and it goes against quote unquote conventional wisdom, which says you should never do anything that's going to provide you with excess liquidity because you should be broke your whole life or and tie up your money in assets and you
Mhm.
can end up with extra cash tied up in another asset
Mhm.
and you should never have cash. And you know what I say? I want to have cash available to me. Even if it's credit
Mhm.
lines, because I manage my credit well and I don't,
Mhm.
Hmm.
go above limits or whatever, to say when you're in a jam and you need to sell your $100 million house for
Mhm.
54, I'll buy it from you for
You know what
54.
my friend Justin actually said? Sorry to cut you on. But my friend Justin actually said,
Just in stock,
yeah, Justin Scott
Big
actually.
up
Big up
Justin. Big
Justin.
up Justin.
Yeah, man. He asked me,
just
if you were a business, right, your finances and so on, right? You can, he said, come up with a financial year for yourself, this, that, that. Right? If you were a company, right, maybe a listed company or a business or whatnot, would you invest in yourself? And that was a very strong point because I'm just like, now I see things completely differently. Now you have to see, are you doing the things that you would want from your stocks, right? You want X amount of returns from your stocks and so on. In your life, are you managing your finances well, right? Are you tying up your money in certain assets and so on, which are
Mhm.
depreciating or whatever? Like it really now makes you think about every single decision you make. And I like that
Mhm.
point. So yeah.
yes, absolutely. It is. I said to you, it is above and beyond a regular existence. I've seen people who have managed their
Mhm.
resources prudently end up in retirement and cannot buy a new car. And I'm like, why on earth am I working? Sorry, I get to some ice. My wife is being here, so hold on. Thank you, thank you. If you know the
Big
ice
up your wife.
cubes,
Big up your wife.
it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big up misses every time. So yeah, yes, it is. I've seen people work prudently for 35, 30, 40 years, retire and can't buy a new car. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what's the point of that?
I've seen doctors too. It's the same thing. They work forever, yo, and they can't afford like basic things sometimes. Like sometimes I know doctors that have maxed out their
Yeah,
credit card. They're in serious credit card debt, right? And they're just like, yo, I just don't know what to do at this point.
they called me, and I don't want to get into that, but long story.
I mean, you're the right man to call, that, in my
I don't
opinion,
want to get into that, but to then buy property. And I said, guys, I can't tell you the show is going to continue forever, right? But I'm going to tell you, I don't talk out of personal stories, but this one is too good. I couldn't resist this one. When NCB was at $200. I sold 40,000 units for Ryan Strachan. And I marvel because I was just like, how did we get to the point where we could sell $8 million worth of stock? No, many people will look at it and be like, that's nothing. They'll say I bought 500,000 units at 190, but guess the problem with the stock market? It's the grand leveler. They bought $500,000 at 500,000 units at 190, which would have been, I suppose, 95 million or whatever. But that 95 million now at 90 is no 40 something. So the real value is in the skill to identify the stock. Okay, you're not buying a stock to lose money. And I said to everybody, that's why the nuance of where you are at a particular point in life is so critical when you're buying stock. Because I can tell it for me, in a 2014 to 18, 19 period was like magic. I was like, yo, I actually wish I had access to capital then that I do now. I probably even do this podcast. You guys have to pay me. No, I do it anyway. The point, so, so the point though is that I'm just like, yo, you know what? We all have to make do with what we can when we can.
Agreed.
And you just never know when it's going to happen. You see what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And many times people will say, oh, well, I'm going to buy this posh house wherever, forgetting that every year that house is going to cost you 5% of the value you paid
True.
for it in maintenance. Worst, everybody has this dream of this big house or whatever, right? If it's a big house, you're going to need three like people to work on it. You're going to need two gardeners. So you're paying 50 grand a week, which is on top of your light bill and whatever else, which probably explain why some quote unquote rich people are cross because them have beer people coming
Yeah,
into their
true.
pocket every week. Versus, and they have the mortgage to pay in the event that they borrow the money to buy the property, right? Realtors smile, them get 5%. They don't care. They just want the sale. They don't have to deal with no residual cost because once the sale
Hmm.
go through, it's a bank problem. I mean, the bank may call people like me to say, yo, you want to buy this place? We'll give you a 35% discount because the bank don't want to keep the asset.
Hmm.
And the longer you pay the mortgages, the less of the interest loss they suffer. You see what I'm saying? So, like, my whole thing is we need to bring some measure of realism to the whole asset acquisition space. And that's what I think is missing. And I think stocks have been misrepresented to a point because and that's why I like to buy. That's why I say value because I buy into stocks that represent companies that Jamaicans use. So Lasco is in every ghetto. I don't care what price Lasco is. Fall too low, I'll buy more. But the reality is that every time I open the paper, I mean, I'm seeing Lasco advertised more. And you can't go anywhere in a country of 3 million people and say the word Lasco and people
True.
don't know what you're talking about. So it's just a matter of time before that value is recognized. Look, restaurant language at $4 for years to the point where people forgot about it. And maybe if you had like the series of podcasts, not your own, but just others, they'd have been like, yeah, we forgot about restaurant. We have forgotten about a lot of value creating
Hmm.
opportunities locally. But I'm not going to sell Lasco for 100% gain. Lasco is worth a lot
You
more
know
than
what a lot of people
$10.
have forgotten about? JFP. A
Yeah,
lot of people have left that stock alone since it listed.
listed companies are not just IPOs. Listed companies present fertile opportunities for buys, sales, and unlimited upside in a region. And I mean in a hemisphere that has been underserved in my estimation. I said that because Jamaica Stock Exchange is the most viable emerging market exchange in the world. It is the most fertile background platform, sorry, for wealth creation in the world. I mean, anywhere you go in Jamaica, you can create upside. I mean, we create value without even understanding what value is. I say we as Jamaicans. And we have a mechanism now for exits. Okay, I accept this as a player that the brokerage community maybe has not done enough to create more value for participants. I mean, okay, I am one person, GK Capital as a firm, I'm a member of the firm, so we are doing our part, and you will hear more about that in due course. We've done a bit this year, and more will follow. A lot more will follow shortly, because we have a lot of irons
Oh, definitely.
on the
We've seen
coals,
the 2030
right?
vision, so we know there's a lot coming.
Oh, a lot more. You know, like, yeah, Capital, even without Grace Candy brought up
Hmm.
speaking, but GK
I mean,
Capital,
you guys even brought some people to the market. You guys brought JFP to the market and Spurtree, this year.
Yeah, Regency later.
Hmm.
listen, there is so much opportunity, and we don't need, as GK Capital now, we don't need 10% of the market because we don't have 10% of the market. You have businesses in Jamaica that do $1 billion revenue that nobody has heard about. Like, you know how
Yeah,
massive a
that's
deal that
huge,
is?
really.
And when these companies list like they triple their net worth once they list, you see where I'm going with this? It's like I'm saying we haven't scratched the surface, despite the fact that we've listed 99 listed companies on the overall exchange and all that. But there's so much more. You know, there's so much more. So anyway, so yes, people have forgotten about JFP, and yes, they'll get to know about whatever in due course, and whatever, and whomever has been wrong will be wrong even more eventually, and that's fine.
Like I laugh so hard at your tweets every time you talk about JFP or something. Like,
You know why? You know why? Because it just shows me that people don't really understand what they're doing.